Paper three, a different beast, a beast that can sometimes scare a little bit just because it's so different to your paper one and two exam. Okay, the key thing for you to keep in mind is it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, and you've got 70 marks. Okay, 70 marks about the same weight as your NEA. You've actually got 135 minutes to do 70 marks, so it's way more time than you normally had in paper one and two. Okay, there's a reason for that, and I'll get onto it. So the first thing to keep in mind is that what content will paper three cover? Well, it contains, first of all, it contains a resource booklet, so it's exactly the same as paper three you did at GCSE. The only difference is that paper three at GCSE, you got the resource booklet in advance, got to study it, and then all the questions came up in the exam. Here, you get to see the booklet at the same time as the questions, okay, which is why you have so many minutes per mark. It's also a synoptic investigation, so it requires you to draw knowledge across a range of topics at A-level rather than just one topic at GCSE. And there's only a certain number of topics it can cover. Okay, so tectonics is one, and water and carbon is another. And then in the human side, it's globalization and superpowers. So you don't need to revise anything to do with coasts. You don't need to revise anything to do with regeneration, etc. Okay, so the reason behind that is that you've got less content to revise. The revision, technically, you've already done them anyway for paper one and two. There, it's just about bringing all that knowledge together. Okay, there's three ways in which you need to look at it. There's three themes the examiners are looking for. It's players' attitudes and actions, and futures and uncertainties. Okay, so when we talk about players in geography, you know this. We talk about stakeholders in essence. Okay, players are involved in any change that takes place. For example, the desire to extract energy from a location like Antarctica. People have an interest in the plans, are called stakeholders, whilst these responsibilities for making the decisions are called the players. Okay, so stakeholders are anyone who has an interest in it. People who make the decisions are players. So for instance, the building of a hydroelectric power plant in a village in, let's say, the Alps, a player would be the local council. A stakeholder might just be an environmental or a Greenpeace or an environmental protection agency that's worried about the effect on the ecosystem. They're not going to make any decisions. They're just going to lobby for what their beliefs. Okay, so there's a difference there. The players actually actively make decisions. Stakeholders are involved, will try and influence the players in order for the players to reflect the stakeholders' opinions. And overall, the players can be divided into three sections for paper three and in general. One is private sector, so think about TNCs. One is public sector, which is local government, national government, international government like the EU, or what we call the third sector, which is your NGOs. I have the Greenpeace, political think tanks, and the likes. Okay, that's one lens you need to keep in mind. The other way in which other kind of theme is understanding attitudes and actions. So viewpoints and decision makers and stakeholders all have viewpoints, all have values. Okay, for example, the climate scientists recognize the threat posed by climate change, but people differ greatly on how we should adapt and mitigate. Okay, so on the whole, everyone will have, generally speaking, similar viewpoints, but even if you have the same viewpoints, the way you go about it might vary. Okay, and these attitudes always vary due to political reasons, social factors, environmental factors, or religious factors. Okay, and the final one is to looking at about the future and uncertainty. So as we approach 9 billion people in 2050, population-wise, there's a big debate about our ability to provide sufficient water, energy to support our needs. Okay, people approach the questions about the future in different ways, such as business as usual, or adopt a more sustainable strategy. So we're uncertain about issues like climate change for a number of different reasons. Okay, some of the reasons there's the future is uncertain is for scientific reasons. We don't really know what future scientific breakthrough will bring. Demographically, population will increase. We're not 100% sure at what speed and how much. We could be wrong. They're just predictions. Okay, economically, cost of living, economic crash, all these have massive impacts on the future and our ability to do what we say we will do in the future. And politically, all it takes is a massive election to completely change the direction of a country. Where the country goes politically, becomes more democratic, less democratic, that'll have a huge impact on the future of a country. In the case that might be covered in your booklet. Okay, so Ultimately, what will the questions be like? Well, they'll all be based on a resource booklet. Okay, the paper is all about skills. So it'll include some statistics. Okay, but you've got some 4-mark questions which are similar to paper 1 and 2. They'll test your knowledge about the topics that can be covered, so tectonics and carbon and water, along with globalization and superpower. They'll have some extended questions up to 8 marks. Test your ability to apply your knowledge to the context of the resource booklet. I've made a video on how to answer the perfect 4-mark and 8-mark question anyway already, so you can go and see that. And then for the 18 or 24-mark question, my best tip is plan like if it was a 20-mark question. Do the exact same as you would in a 20-mark question. That means 3 piece paragraphs with a strong conclusion, and make sure you've peppered the whole essay with the facts from the resource booklet. Okay, this is how a paper 3 exam actually looks like. You've got 2 4-mark questions, 2 8-mark questions, 1 18 and 1 24. And remember, you've got your 2 hours 17 or 135 minutes for 70 marks. So plenty of time. Just make sure you use that time wisely. Ultimately, in order to succeed for paper 3, my top tips are: use accurate knowledge. Okay, there's a booklet, it's accurate, use that, don't make stuff up. Apply the knowledge from the resource booklet. If you don't use enough of the resource booklet, you're not showing any analytical skills. And in your future jobs, when you go on to uni and in actual careers, you need to be able to analyze reports. Always start your points with evidence from the resource booklet. Okay, hence why the piece paragraph works really well. Always make sure your answers are balanced, even if it's not necessarily your opinion. Balance your answers with what the resource booklet provides if it's at the other side of the argument, and also make sure you've got a valid judgment. Use that value reliability of the data. Okay, so feel free to judge the reliability of the data, feel free to judge the value of the data if that helps you to answer your question. Okay, but best of luck, and once you're done, enjoy your much deserved summer holiday.